Excellent. But before we start, Lawrence, my understanding is we have a short video of the BTCC. So we're going to share that video to get a little bit of the action. Okay, so
15 laps stand between us and the 2024 champion, and knowing who that is going to be. The Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit has had some epic showdowns in the past. The 2024 Quick Fit British Touring Car Championship final round is ready to go. Lights are red. We're racing for the final time this year. There's a lot of wheel spin off the grid. There's a good stop by Turkington, who then can't get through the traffic. Jake Hill also charges up behind the front-wheel drive cars, and Ingram has not been able to find a way through, but he's on the inside of Hill. Look in the background. Ingram goes ahead of Hill. There's a sideways forward that is just about corrected. Ingram finds himself blocked by Turkington now, and Jake Hill now getting a bit more interested in getting ahead of Ingram. He's sat there, he's assessing what's going on, and he makes his move on the outside line. The two championship fighters go toe-to-toe, but Jake Hill, I think, has got the pace right now, and he's going to be able to get the drive. Jake Hill fighting back in the championship, absolutely level. They're on the hybrid, and Ingram doesn't have a lot to use, don't forget. He's just got his nose in front, but the road should come to Jake Hill, and it does on the inside. Jake Hill goes through. It is right now. This is the replay, watching what went on ahead. So there was the contact between Cook and Taylor Smith, and a little bit like in race one, the road opens up for Jake. Yeah, perfectly, and then he spots the opportunity to use his preferred line on the outside. This is a reaction in the West Surrey team, NB Motorsport. So much support here for Jake Hill, who is now in front of Josh Cook. He's in second place. Absolutely right. So not only is he second, he's also put a bit of daylight between himself and the Toyota. Jake Hill may have run out of hybrid, but it's not affecting him, because here, the mistake by Cookie, a bit of a wobble at Graham Hill Bend. Again, the road opens up for Jake. That's Camish, who's up alongside him and gains a place. Ingram drops back a spot, and although he's going to try to retaliate on the way to Sterling's, that perhaps underlines the problems that Ingram and the Hyundai are having in these half-and-half conditions. Ash Sutton wins the final round of the championship, but into Clark Curve on his home circuit in front of a huge amount of support comes the 2024 Quick Fit British Touring Car Champion, Jake Hill. He crosses the line second in the race. The championship is his, and it is going to be a very emotional Jake Hill, a very emotional team as well. Craig Corley, his engineer, is in floods of tears. Jake Hill, I think, can hardly believe it. We've had some very emotional in-laps in the past, and there is another one coming up right now. It's a day release, if you like, of all the emotion, a season's release as well, and especially in conditions as tough as that. It's so important, and you can understand why Jake is absolutely beside himself in the car.
Well, Alan, that sets the scene nicely for a chat about the British Touring Car Championship. Good to see you again. Not seen you for a while.
Haven't seen you for a while, Lawrence, and you actually haven't picked up the American accent yet.
That would be too much of a stretch. So, Alan, just putting the BTCC into a little bit of perspective. Obviously, we got a taste there of the action. We got a taste there even of the good old British weather in October. But just where does it fit into the overall British landscape, sporting landscape?
Okay, so without thumping our chest too hard, the BTCC is by far the biggest championship in the UK by any measure. It has been for a very long time, as you know. It probably came of age from about 1991. It overtook the traditional Formula 3 and open wheeler type categories that were dominant in the UK scene then. So probably since about 1990, 91, it's been the biggest championship in the UK. So it has the highest profile, it has a huge media presence, as you know, and a huge TV presence. So, yeah, as I said, without beating my chest, it is by far the largest championship in the UK, with the biggest crowds and everything else.
And a lot of that has been down to the fact that, Alan, over the years, you've not been afraid to evolve. You've not been afraid to innovate. You've sort of been able to capture the sort of almost, this is what the fans want, but at the same time, keeping it where there is a viable, cost-effective base for teams. Just looking ahead to 2025, again, a few changes that I think will be fairly significant. Just walk us through those.
Yeah, well, for 2025, we're going to 100% fossil-free sustainable fuel, which is a bit of a landmark for not only our championship but for British motorsport. And we'll be the first major championship of its type in the world to go fossil free. And we've done that on the back of coming off of hybrid. You know, we were the early adopter of hybrid technology, certainly into saloon car type racing. So we've had 3 years of hybrid use in the BTCC. And whilst others are now only just starting to introduce hybrid or coming into hybrid, we've done that, ticked that box and moved on, and we're going into pure fossil-free fuel. But you're right, it's something we have done all the way along. You know, go back to the early 90s, we were the first championship of its type to introduce catalytic converters and unleaded fuel and all these sorts of things. So we've always seen, you know, over the course of the last 25 years, we've had, you know, diesel, we've had LPG gas, you know, we've had biofuels, we've had hybrid, we've had, and now, you know, 100% sustainable fuels. So we've always been at the forefront of making ourselves as relevant as we can to what is going on around us, and that's the important part.
And always remembering as well that, you know, in the end, this is a show. This is why 30,000-40,000 people pack Brands Hatch or Alton Park. I mean, how much of a balancing act is there in terms of, you know, making this thing, you know, have some relevancy for participating teams and manufacturers, but also knowing that the bottom line is this is the show, this is a British Touring Car Championship.
And that is the overriding aspect of the whole lot. You know, we don't go down a technological exercise just for the sake of ticking boxes. It has to also add to the show, and the show is everything, if you like. You know, we as you know, we have 3 races on a Sunday, 3 short races. They're 25 minutes in duration. It's a lot of work for the teams, but that's what the people come to see. You know, the spectators come to see races. You know, and we could have a 2-hour race, we could have a driver change, we could have a refueling race, and everything else. That's not going to add anything to the spectacle. Notoriously, BTCC spectators and audiences have quite a short attention span. Maybe we have taught them to have a short attention span. And every time we talk about doing a longer race, an hour race, by most of our spectators and fans will come to us and say, "Please don't do that. You know, don't meddle with what you got." And likewise with the TV. The TV want short, sharp. Everyone wants to see a race start and a race finish, you know, and plenty of action in between. And that's what we deliver. So, yes, that's a long way of answering your question, which is everything we do has to improve the show. If ever we introduce something which has been detrimental to the excitement and the entertainment of our racing, we'll quickly drop it, because that's the most important part.
I know Bernie Ecclestone was a great one for keeping them wanting more. I mean, one of the philosophies of the BTCC as well is it's one of the more compact seasons in motorsports. You know, obviously the British weather kind of defines that to some extent, late April until early October. But yeah. Alan, you've over the last few years, you've really stuck to your guns on the fact that there are 10 rounds, as you say, each with the 3 races. I mean, is that how do you arrive at that optimum championship length?
It's you've got to be aware of the team's budget. Yeah, I could easily go to 11 or 12 rounds if I wanted, and certainly my broadcast would be happy doing that. But that adds another 10 or 20% budget to the teams, and they can't always get that back. So, you know, if the teams all came to me and said, "Look, we'd like to run another event," we will run another event. There's no doubt about that. But you know, we've gone through a few hard years. The world has gone through a few hard years of cost controls and everything else. And the last thing I want to do is impose a cost on them which they can't retrieve. So if they can't get that extra money out of their sponsors and everything else to do extra events, why would I impose that cost on them? So I stick to my guns as far as, you're right about the weather. The weather is a huge constraint in the UK, as you know. It gets dark very early here in autumn and in the end of winter and autumn and spring. So we're constrained by where we race and when we can race. We have sort of pushed the envelope sometimes out to mid-October for a late finish, and sometimes we've gone into a November. In 2020, we went into November. We had our headlights on, for the last race of the year. It's certainly not what we wanted. So we're greatly constrained by the weather and everything else. Our season is fairly short. It's sort of 6 or 7 months and 10 events, but they're full-on events. It's 30 races, and people seem to forget we race 30 races a year, not just 10 events. So it's a full-on season for those teams.
And Alan, as you say, a lot of what you do is to make sure that this is cost effective, this is viable for teams in what is a national series. I mean, obviously a national series with a footprint beyond that, but one of the things as well, I guess, in terms of the BTCC, in terms of TOCA being early adopters, the TOCA BTCC license, I guess that was ahead of its curve in terms of giving national teams, some skin in the game, something to sort of add value. I mean, what's the thought process on that, and how does it benefit, fairly small scale nationally based teams?
So it was exactly that, and it was actually introduced at a time. All series, most series, go through ups and downs. And there was a time where we had applications for something like 35 cars on the grid, and that was just too many. So that's when we started introducing the license system, so that the existing teams had a it's a franchise, if you like, where it gives them the automatic right to put a car on the grid. And we issued those to our long-standing teams and a few new ones. Although we started, when we issued them, it was something like 32 cars, which is too many. And it's unusual for race series to complain they've got too many cars, but it's just true. You've been around long, you know what 32 cars are like at Knock Hill or Alton Park or whatever. That's just too many.
Well, only for the first lap.
Exactly, yeah. You'll probably lose half of them. But just physically, we just not enough garaging and everything else, and paddock space and everything else. So we, my thought has always been that a grid of about 24, 26 cars is optimum. So we introduced the licensing system to give them an asset, give the teams an asset of which they can trade with their cars. Teams come and go, and if they want to sell their car, then you can sell your car with a license, and that makes the car more valuable, because there's nothing more invaluable than an old racing car with nowhere to race. So it puts an asset into their hands, and it gives them something in return for what they put into the BTCC and for their commitment to us. So it's a commitment to them.
One other thing as well is the incredible stability in the basic rule set. I mean, obviously, as you say, hybrid has been added, hybrid has been taken out, but the NGTC rules, which have been the core of this series, I think they're going into their, is it the 15th season?
15th, yeah. So they were introduced in 20. The rule set came out in 2010. They were introduced fully in 2011. In 2010, some cars ran to that rule set, and there's been 5 yearly updates since then. And they've been obviously a very successful rule set. And all we've done in that period is do minor upgrades to it as we go along. Nothing that ever gets the junks a car or gets rid of a car or makes a car uncompetitive. It's just upgrades that you'll do to sometimes to save money, sometimes to make the cars more efficiently to be built more efficiently, to be serviced more efficiently. But it's a rule set that I'm really proud of. I don't know any other touring car series in the world that's had a stable rule set for as long as we have. And we're going into our next rule set, which comes out in 2027, and that will be a continuation of what we've got. That'll just be the NGTC rule set, which will be updated to take us into the next 5 years. And of course, the best thing you can do for teams is have a stable rule set where they don't have to keep on changing their cars and updating their cars all the time. Where you've got components that can live. Okay, you life components, obviously, but the basic premise of those components are the same as what they were back in 2011. That's fantastic for the teams. And it also gives the teams, getting back to what I was talking about before, it gives them something to sell, because they know that if they want to sell a car, the person that buys that car knows that that car is going to be eligible for another 5 or 10 years.
One of the big things as well, I think, in that rule set as well, is that you brought out the concept of the TOCA control engine, but still allowed teams, if they wish to do their own engine development, to have, you know, enough sort of variation in there to kind of give them that, you know, this is our own engine, this is relevant to us. But how fundamental and to the success of the BTCC in recent years has the TOCA spec engine, you know, as a route in for smaller teams, for non-manufacturer supported teams been?
It was incredibly successful, particularly when we first introduced it. I think 50% of the cars on the grid had the TOCA engine. Now it's less; it's probably 15% of the cars on the grid have the TOCA engine, because teams have gone on to develop their own engines. Again, because of the stable rule set, they've seen that they can do some engine development, which will see them over the next 10 years, which is great value for money. But the TOCA engine is still there for particularly for new teams that are coming in, until they establish themselves and establish where they want to go as far as engines and everything else goes. It's a great a great engine to use. It's built by M Sport, Malcolm Wilson's company. It's a fantastic, reliable engine, and it's also the benchmark. It is the engine that we use, on which we base all the performance parameters, and on which the boost and everything else is based, as far as the other cars go. So when it was first introduced, I sort of explained it as the Cosworth DFV of Formula One. So back in the days of Formula One, you're a chassis builder, you couldn't afford to build your own engine, you bought a Cosworth DFV, and that's what our TOCA engine is.
You've also brought in you will bring an engine freeze in the spring of 2025. Again, another concept for parity and for stability until the new rules kick in.
Yeah, all the engine builders hated it, obviously, because you know, they make money from updating their engines every year. But the reality is that we equalise the engines every year, and it was nonsense to allow the engines to keep on being developed every year, for us to keep on equalising them every year. What are they achieving apart from spending a lot of money unnecessarily? So we brought in an engine freeze. That'll take us through until the next rule set, to the end of 26 for the 27 year. As I said, I'm sure the engine builders hated it. I know I didn't get any congratulatory emails from them, but the teams loved it, because, of course, it stabilises their engine builds for the next 2 years.
And one other thing about the BTCC as well, the bane of so many series lives is balance of performance. You know, the vexed question of sort of maintaining parity through, you know, the constant tweaking of regulations. Alan, you've had something more fundamental in the BTCC, basically from decades back, which is trying to get rear-wheel drive cars and front-wheel drive cars to basically be on a par. I mean, how much of an ongoing process is that? And you know, in terms of sort of the to and fro between them, how do you sort of maintain parity without sort of impinging on the show?
Yeah, I think as you'll know, Lawrence, from your experience around the BTCC, we've got great experience in ensuring that the cars are equal on performance. If I go back to the back to the 90s, at one stage we had 4-cylinder, 5-cylinder, and 6-cylinder engines. We had front-wheel drive, we had rear-wheel drive, we had four-wheel drive. We had saloons, station wagons, estates. We had all sorts of different body styles. Can you imagine what we went through equalising the performance on those? And if you can equalise all of those different cars in one season, as we used to do, then actually just equalising front and rear wheel drive at the moment is actually really easy, comparatively speaking. But we have all the tools in the box. You know, it helps that we have a lot of common components. You know, the subframes and suspensions are the same for each car. So and the electronics are the same for each car. So we know exactly what each car is doing, and we can equalise the performance quite easily. Having said that, we hardly ever tinker with it now, because the rule set is so good that there's very, very little tweaking. I think the last time we tweaked the difference between front and rear wheel drive might have been 3 seasons ago. And that was a very minor tweak regarding acceleration off the line, and I think where the weight is placed in the car. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was a fairly minor tweak. But we don't make big changes from year to year. We don't have to, because I think we've got it absolutely right. And the results show it by, you know, have a look at the results of between the different types of cars, both front and rear wheel drive, and all the different front wheel drive cars. I think the results absolutely proves that we've got it spot on.
On the sporting side, 2025, you've never been afraid to sort of mix it up in terms of, you know, tweaks, little sort of changes to the sporting regs. If they work, they work. If they don't, you're not afraid to pull them out. A couple of interesting ones for next year. Just talk me through the boost that replaces the hybrid, and also this sort of hiding it from the teams, but allowing us on TV to actually see what the heck's going on.
So for the last 3 years, so hybrid, when hybrid was first introduced, we used only the hybrid to perform the push to pass and push to defend and everything else. And then in the first year it was only hybrid. In the second year, we introduced a bit of boost into it, and this year we added more boost into it. So we found out where the right level is that we need to make the cars react and perform the way we want them to. Now, with the dropping of hybrid, what we'll do is just replace that hybrid boost with pure turbo boost. So the push, and that's a much easier thing for people to understand, because a lot of series do it. So you press the button, and the turbo boost gives them that performance that they had this year, but with no hybrid element. Probably making it sound more complicated than it is, but it's really not. So it's just a turbo. So in the sporting regulations, depending on where you are in the championship or where you finished in the last race, is how much boost you get.
Right.
So if you've just won the last race, you'll get 1 second worth of boost. Good luck with that. If you're 12th or 15th or whatever, you'll have 15 seconds of boost. So the amount of boost is dependent on where you finished that previous race. And therefore you can't, you know, it just gives everyone a greater opportunity to try and get past you than if you had the same amount of boost as everyone else. Perhaps I'm not explaining it too well, but I'm sure you understand the philosophy of it.
So we start the new season end of April. Start with Donington. You've got 24 cars registered, which is, as you say, an extremely healthy amount in terms of it's the right number. It's not too many. Looking ahead to the 2025 season, and looking ahead to we've got a first-time champion with Jake Hill this year. We've got some real sort of a new wave of superstars, the likes of Ingram, the likes of Ash Sutton. You know, your Colin Turkingtons. Have we got the optimum blend for 2025 BTCC in your mind?
I think we've got fantastic drivers in fantastic cars, and there's a couple of good. There's a couple of exciting announcements to come out over the next few weeks, or whenever the teams are going to do it. I'm privileged to know which drivers are going where. So there's a few driver changes, quite a few driver changes happening in the off season, all of which means that yes, next year we've got the right people in the right cars, and it'll be a fascinating season to watch. It'll be so hard fought. You have teams, for example, like Napa Racing. They really hurt this year because they had such a dominant season last year. Perhaps they sort of sat on their hands a little bit too long over winter, and everyone else caught up. I can tell you they'll be out swinging next year because it really hurt them. So will BMW, because as you know, West Surrey are just one of the most incredibly competitive teams around. So Accelerate, with the Hyundais, Speedworks with the Works Toyota, they've got a point to prove. There's a lot of changes that'll happen in the off season with drivers, teams, and their equipment that'll make absolutely 2025 another nail biter.
Well, Alan, that starts on April the 26th, 27th. That's Miles Stomping Ground, Donington Park. Just one quick wrap-up question now. I see the grown-ups have entered the room, but putting your other hat on, and I want to sort of stay clear of maybe some of your FIA stewarding duties at the moment. But looking at you as the head honcho of the FIA Touring Car Commission, just give us a quick take on the global landscape of touring car racing. We've got GT3 and GT4 sort of on the up and up. So where do dedicated national touring car series fit in, do you see it?
So it's a bit fractured, to be honest. You have the BTCC has its own rule set, one of the biggest touring car countries in the world. Australia has its own rule set, one of the biggest touring car countries in the world. There's a rule set called TCR, which is customer racing, which happens for those nations that don't have their own rule set, that want to race customer cars, and you have a world tour attached to that. But then below that, the FIA put in two new sort of categories, which work on the Rally 4 and Rally 5 basis. So they're grassroots touring cars. I don't think there'll ever be a top of the pyramid touring car pyramid that is the same rule set all around the world. I just don't think there will be, and I think there has been for maybe 5 years in my lifetime that I can remember, because it's a cultural thing. Australia is always going to be different to what the UK is going to be, and America will always run different cars to what they will in the other countries as well. So it's fractured as far as the top of the pyramid goes. But the middle of the pyramid is fantastic. When you have a look at all the great championships around the world and the great cars that are racing in the world, it's a great time for touring car racing.
Well, on that note, I think we're going to hand back to the main panel. But Alan, fascinating as ever. Thank you for that, and looking forward to Donington. Well, not the weather, but looking forward to Donington in late April for the start of another BTCC season.
Me too, and thanks, Lawrence. Good to see you again.
EPARTRADE is a digital platform that we've created basically to make life easier in the business community of auto racing.
EPARTRADE, there is no e-commerce. It's literally a connection just like at a trade show. So now, any time of the year, a buyer could reach out to a supplier.
When you see a product that you're interested in, all you need to do is click on request more information, and then from there it is forwarded directly to the buyer or to the supplier.
EPARTRADE really eliminates having to travel, closing down your shop. Now you have a place to showcase globally your racing product and technology.
Looking for a quick fix of motorsports news? The Speed Sport Daily is what you need. It's a free racing newsletter delivered directly to your email every day. We'll cover the winners and the losers and tell you who's making news off the track. It's NASCAR, NHRA, World of Outlaw, IndyCar, and so much more. Go to speedsport.com today and get signed up for America's free racing newsletter and get your daily motorsports fix. The Speed Sport Daily.
Land speed record holder George Poteet's Speed Demon rocketed 481 miles per hour at the Bonneville Salt Flats. You don't go that fast without ARP fasteners.
There is no way that we could go the speed that we've gone, the number of times we've gone, with a lesser quality bolt than ARP supplies to us. And we absolutely wouldn't be where we were today if it weren't for ARP.
When failure is not an option, it's ARP-bolts.com.
We're Performance Plus Global Logistics. Our team of dedicated performance industry and logistics experts get valuable cars and components to the track on time in top condition. We provide expedited logistics solutions for the performance industry using direct routes instead of deferred options, and communicate all necessary information to the appropriate resources to meet regulations and ensure a smooth transit and secure delivery, both domestically and internationally. And we exceed customer expectations by providing best-in-class service with an efficient and cost-effective system in place. Contact us today to book your next shipment.
Scott Lewis & Associates, the sales, marketing, and branding specialist for the automotive performance industry since 1988. We get our manufacturers on track by opening an extensive distribution network, providing product training to sales staff, creating fully integrated sales and marketing strategies, building successful industry partnerships, attending trade shows, events, and races, offering first-class support to customers. SLAI delivers solutions that win you sales. To get in touch with an SLAI representative, call 516-378-6100. Go to scottlewisinc.com or email info@scottlewisinc.com.
With roots in the Midwest that date back well before the Model T, Fifth Third Bank has a long history of serving the needs of automotive companies. While much has changed over the years, our passion for helping businesses put cars on the road and on the track has not. Today, we are more committed than ever as a member of SEMA, a founding member of PRI, and a sponsor of multiple race teams across several racing series.
For over a decade, Fifth Third Bank has been a staunch supporter of our industry and a great partner for many companies in the motorsports field.
Our business has been growing extremely fast, and really we could not be where we are today without Fifth Third. They provided amazing strategic advice, the capital we need to support our phases of growth.
They are true partners for me now, and what they do with their involvement in motorsports is untouched in this community.
Where can we take your business? Fifth Third Bank.
You work as hard as your truck, and you have no time for downtime. That's why more truck owners trust Blue Def, America's #1 diesel exhaust fluid brand. Each batch is guaranteed pure, so you can avoid costly repairs caused by inferior DEF. Demand America's best for your truck with Blue Def and Blue Def Platinum. Put trust in your truck.
When it comes to pushing the limits of performance, the pros know there's no room for compromise. At Crowder Cams, we don't just engineer camshafts and valve train components, we redefine what power means. Since 1955, Crowder Cams has been the name trusted by racers, engine builders, and gearheads around the globe. Whether you're building a street machine, a dragster, or a track car, Crowder Cams provides the muscle you need to dominate. And with Crowder, victory is within your reach.
For over 25 years, Wisconsin-based CTech Manufacturing has been engineering and manufacturing the toughest, most accessible aluminum tool drawers, cabinets, carts, and tactical storage solutions for America's hardest working professionals. Whatever you need to store and however you need to store it, put your trust in CTech Manufacturing. We build it better. Visit our new website at ctechmanufacturing.com or give us a call at 715-355-8842.
If you're watching this video, you might be wondering, what is WPC? WPC is a surface treatment designed to reduce friction and increase the strength of metal parts. As much as it might seem like a coating, WPC is actually a surface treatment. Think of it like shot painting, but the media is much finer, like talc. So what you're left with is a super hard, smooth surface that actually has some proprietary dry lubricants embedded within it. For more information, visit WPCtreatment.com.